Welcome, fellow Toastmasters and guests. The meeting of Online Presenters Toastmasters Club has now begun. Guests, please note that in order to be a member of our club, you must be a current or former active member of Toastmasters International and have completed at least 6 Toastmasters official speeches. However, if you have substantial relevant presentation experience, you may apply for membership after demonstrating your abilities in a 2 to 3 minute speech delivered during one of our club meetings. All requests for membership are subject to approval by the members of our club. Now, everyone, if you have not done so, please change your panel to ensure it shows your name and role if you have one. You can simply hover over your video, right-click on the 3 dots, and select Rename. We have members and guests from many countries throughout the world, and as a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language or word usage that may be considered offensive or otherwise insensitive due to cultural differences. Please note that we will be recording the meeting. Your video and audio contribution may be used for club marketing purposes. Also, please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce for the 2024-2025 Toastmaster year, please help me welcome our club president, Marion Grady.
Thank you, Sunny. Thank you, everybody. Well, I am pretty excited to be here, and we just had our first board meeting, and we're just off to a great start. So there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm floating around me right now. So thank you, everybody, for doing all of that you do. Now, tonight, the theme of the day is video games. So Joni, I think, assigned that one, and just so everybody understands, Joni is assigning a theme to every meeting, but if you're the Toastmaster of the day, you can go in and change it up until Saturday. But after that, people might be doing table topics or things like that with the theme in mind. So we'd like to keep it that. We'd like to lock things down on Saturday. But no one changed it. So it's video games. So get your Nintendos, everybody. You know, I'm like old school. I don't know the new one. So you know, I'm like Mario and Luigi with my grandsons, and I'm doing good. But that's our theme. And I wanted to let you know a couple of things. We have a great meeting tonight. We have 2 terrific speakers. And we also want to let you know that next week on the 15th, July 15th, we are having a webinar contest. And we are still accepting people to sign up and to compete. So if you would like to, please go to our webpage and RSVP for that meeting and tell them that you want to be as a contestant. But I'm not going to keep going on because we have a lot of things to jam into tonight's program. So I will introduce our Toastmaster of the day, Sherry Blake.
Thank you so much for that. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Welcome to our online presenters meeting. I am, once again, Sherry Blake, and I'm honored to serve as your Toastmaster of the day. As we gather here today, I am reminded of the unique journey each of us embarks on when we join Toastmasters. We come from different backgrounds, professions, and of course, experiences, but we share a common goal, and that's to become a more effective communicator and leader. Toastmasters is a place where we can safely challenge ourselves, take risks, and grow. It's a supportive environment where we can learn not just from our own speeches, but also from the feedback we receive and the examples set by our peers. Today's meeting promises to be an inspiring one. We have a lineup of a prepared speech, an engaging evaluation, and impromptu speaking opportunities that will showcase the diverse talents within our club. As Toastmaster of the Day, my role is to guide you through this agenda, ensuring a smooth and enjoyable experience for everyone. But remember, this meeting is about more than just that. Following a schedule, it's more than just following a schedule. It's about embracing the process, supporting each other, and celebrating our progress, no matter how big or small. But before we dive into the program, let me remind you that Toastmasters provides a supportive and positive learning experience for everyone. Well, as our president mentioned, today is National Video Game Day. It's a day dedicated to celebrating video games and the culture surrounding them. But in the United States, it's observed on July 8th of each year. The day is an opportunity for gamers to play their favorite games, share gaming experiences with friends, and appreciate the art and technology behind video games. Now, when I first heard of this day, my thought was, is this a real thing? So I'm gonna give you a couple of fun facts. The very first video game console that paved the way for modern gaming was the Magnavox Odyssey in 1972. And then we had the Atari Home Pong, which was in 1975. Now, for Marianne, she was wondering, what games are we using today? Well, the popular games today are the PS5 and the Xbox Series and the Nintendo Switch, which some of your children may have, your adult children or your young children. But did you also know that 45% of gamers are women? So women, we are like taking over this gaming world, right? Well, we haven't taken it over, but we are trying to catch up to the men. And then the average gamer's age is 34. So those are some cool fun facts. Okay, so let's begin our meeting by having everyone go over their meeting role. So we're going to start with the timer, Sunny Fridge. If you can tell us, what is your role for this evening, Sunny?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster of the Day. As timer, and I'm going to see if I can put it in another view so I can make sure everyone can see this timer. I will, maybe you can, I'll have to get spotlighted for a moment, but when I know that the timer has reached 5 minutes for a 5 to 7 minute speech, you will see the green card. At 6 minutes, you will see the yellow card. And at 7 minutes, you will see the red card, which means that you should wrap up. For the table topics, which are 1 to 2 minutes, at 1 minute, you will see the green card. At 1 minute, 30 seconds, you will see the yellow card. And at 2 minutes, you will see the red card. Please wrap up. And finally, we also will have speech evaluators. And it's 2 to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, you will see the green card. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, you will see the yellow card. And at 3 minutes, you will see the red card. And please know to wrap up. And all those who qualify will get the opportunity to participate in being voted best speaker, best table topic speaker, or best speech evaluator. When called upon, I'll give this report back to you.
Thank you so much for that, Sunny. Next is the odd counter, Joni-Renee Laidlaw.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster of the Day. I'll be doing 2 things today. Well, technically, I believe 3. But for the counter today, it will be my job to make notes of the so's. And if it gets really, really bad, I may, Now, the beauty of that is we get to be in the digital space, and I will utilize this opportunity to give a visual ding whenever we have a crutch word of any but, likes, or very, very long pauses. And I'll give a report when called upon to do so at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster of the Day.
Thank you for that. Our grammarian is Marianne Grady. Marianne. You
Hello,
are
everybody. I am your grammarian this evening, and I will be listening to great usages of the English language, grammatical gems, and poor uses, and bring them to your attention and maybe offer some suggestions. I also have a word of the day, and it is quest. And I will be putting that word in the chat with a definition and a sentence for you to look at. But please try to put that word into your speaking today.
Thank you so much for that, Marianne. The next person with a role is our watcher, Samuel.
Madam Toastmaster today, thank you so much. As watcher, my role tonight is to improve the overall quality of our meeting. I'll do that by first observing each participant, not just speakers, but all participants in this meeting. And I will look at visual aids and different elements of the meeting and provide a feedback at the end of our session.
Thank you so much. The chat monitor is Andrei Smolenko.
Thank you, Sherry. Yes, I'm a chat monitor for tonight's meeting. I love this role because my job is just to keep an eye on the chat. And at Online Presenters, we encourage guests and members to use the chat, but not during their prepared speeches. So please refrain from using at least public chat box during their prepared speeches. At the same time, well, please try to keep it as fun, brief, nice as possible as you can. And remember about today's theme is International Games Day. I will be watching closely and come back to you at the end of the meeting with a brief report. Back to you, Sherry.
Thank you so much for that. Our vote counter is Sarah Ibrahim.
Thank you, Sherry. Toastmaster of today. As vote counter, I will be collecting the ballots for our speakers, our evaluators, our speech evaluators, and also our people who do table topics. And then I will be putting those in the chat, and I will give a report when asked to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And our table topics master, which is Andrew Byrne.
The role of the table topics master is to pose questions that are thought-provoking and allows you to have an open-ended question that you can provide an answer to in 1 to 2 minutes. The green is the minimum of 1 minute. Midpoint is yellow at 1.5 and finalizing at 2 minutes. I'll put out the question and then ask someone to respond to it. Thank you.
Thank you. And our general evaluator is Kartika Devi. I'll stop there. Kartika. Kartika, can you tell us what your role is as general evaluator?
Yeah, as a general evaluator, I'm here to give a report on the meeting proceeding, to get back with the evaluation, as well as to take forward with the general evaluation section where we need to evaluate the speakers as well as to understand their different aspects related to timing and sorry to stop here. Let me come again. As a general evaluator, I'm here to take forward and proceed the meeting evaluation on an overall, and I'll give you the report by the end of this meeting. I'm here also to give weight to the evaluators for the prepared speeches and provide the feedback for their own evaluation as well. Over to you, Sherry.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, so we're going to start with the tip of the day. So Joni, if you want to go into the purpose of this or what your role is, you can do that. If not, you can just dive right into the tip of the day. Joni?
Well, since I have 3 minutes, I will just dive right into the tip of the day. The beautiful thing about the online space is that we have the opportunity to do things that we can't actually do in person. Don't you just wish that it was possible to mute people? Well, fortunately, online, you get the power to do that. Now, everybody always wonders why we always have hot mics during the course of, I'm hoping I did not freeze. Did I freeze?
Not
All right.
frozen.
We can still
Okay.
hear you though.
All right, excellent. So we always wonder why we have hot mics during the course of a meeting. That's because when persons enter the meeting, we do not put mute participants on entry. So people randomly just believe that they're muted, and when they do, guess what happens? They come in talking to their son because we've been telling him to be quiet, but he just did not hear. And it was this last ditch attempt to get him to be quiet, and instead you disturbed all the meeting. So that's how we can go about fixing that issue. Now, the question is, where would you find that? Now, if it isn't very evident, it says it at the top, participants. It's always important to make sure that we work along with our participant screen. Now, there are certain things that I prefer in a meeting. One is to not have that annoying sound when people join and leave, because it can be just as disturbing, but it helps if you're going to walk away, and this is where you would find it. Now, you also have a couple of other options here, but that's not the reason for today's meeting. The reason for today's meeting is that at Online Presenters, we actually have webinars. Now, when it comes to our webinars, we do need help to do things such as spotlight. And this is where you would go about being able to spotlight for everyone. Now, as you can see, I have actually spotlighted Sunny, and I can actually change my view to gallery or to speaker, but I can also add a spotlight, or if we're going really quickly, we can actually go here to remove the spotlight. Now, it helps to play around, fiddle around, and as Vice President of Education in the club, no, I'm not just doing this as a tip of the day, I'm doing a suggestion for a role. Anyone who wants to try to be the spotlighter or participant screen monitor during any of our meetings, please let me know, as we can practice our procedure. That way, whenever we need it, we get the chance to improve and be better overall as speakers and presenters. Now, just to show once more, you can remove the spotlight there as well. And in the same breath, you can also utilize your participant screen. So I look forward to our participant screen monitors to help me mute in online life and also spotlight when necessary. But believe me when I tell you, it takes practice, especially when there becomes this little thing called an arrow and you have to move on to the next screen. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you so much for that tip, Joni. I've learned a lot from that. I'm still trying to learn how to use Zoom more effectively and do other things, but thank you so much for that tip. So we're going to move on to our prepared speeches. As I mentioned, we have one prepared speech, and that will be delivered by Graham Cairns. Graham is starting the effective coaching path, level 1, mastering fundamentals, and he is going to deliver his icebreaker speech, which is 4 to 6 minutes. The speech title is Learning to Love the Lens. Learning to Love the Lens, Graham Cairns.
Madam Toastmaster, members, friends, I have what is perhaps best known as a great face for radio. I've worked in broadcast media almost all my adult life, but the vast majority of that time has been in radio, first as a disc jockey, then as a news journalist, and as a talks radio producer, and then as a manager. My last full-time job was as news director of a station that provided news to more than 3 million people each day. But almost all of my time in the media was not on camera, or at least not directly addressing the camera. In fact, the very reason that I joined Toastmasters was because I was more than comfortable talking to 50,000 people at a time. But if you stuck 50 of them physically in front of me where I could see them, then my tongue would take on all the characteristics of a killer whale's fluke, flopping around in my mouth. But what about TV reporting, you say? You don't see people as you're presenting a TV report or reading a news bulletin. Well, that may be true, but despite being a TV newsreader at some time and an on-the-road TV reporter at other times, I was never really comfortable staring down the lens of the barrel. Maybe I can blame Toastmasters rather than praising it for this. Let me explain. As I say, I joined Toastmasters the first time some 40 plus years ago. I joined at the urging of a fellow radio professional at a radio station in Tamworth in New South Wales in Australia. It was a mid-ranking radio station in a mid-ranking radio market, and I was, well, quite frankly, a mid-ranking DJ. It was suggested that unless I got my nerves under control dealing with real live people that I could see, then I would never be able to aspire to be better than mid-ranking. And so I joined Toastmasters and I learned. I learned how to craft a speech so that my message would stick. I learned how to use my voice, varying pitch, pace, modulation, timbre to bring my audience alongside me. I learned how to use visual support material. I mean, initially it was butcher's paper and whiteboards and props, and then later things like PowerPoint. And all of those learnings have stood me in good stead for 40 years. But I also learned how to use the stage effectively, to do what actors call blocking, or using the space to reinforce my message and not to distract from it. And I learned that I could make individual eye contact with as many audience members as I could, because that was the only way that I could be sure that I was reaching them. But neither of those things are particularly useful when dealing with a camera. In fact, they can be counterproductive. You can't move around when you're pinned down by the lens of a video camera, whether it's a TV or a webcam. And you have to stare down the lens of the camera if you want to make eye contact, which means you don't get that instant feedback that so many of us rely on. But this speech is entitled Learning to Love the Lens, so obviously there has to be some good news. And there is. Just over 7 years ago, a group of Toastmasters, many of them in South Florida, decided they were going to take advantage of Toastmasters International's decision to allow online-only clubs, and online presenters was proposed. I eagerly joined the move to charter this club. That was 3 years before COVID-19 forced the whole world online, and that decision led to my learning to love the lens. Online presenters, literally living up to its name, started giving me the skills I needed to overcome my discomfort with the camera. In 2019, for example, the club presented workshops on creating, editing and sharing videos. That was by David Carr. There was John Hayden's Facebook Live for Dummies. In 2020, Archim Nowak's fascinating Gestures for Connection, showing how to use this specific medium to advantage. And in June that year, there was one of the workshops that changed the way I thought about using a video camera lens. That was Roger Corville's Boosting Engagement in an Online Presentation. There are lots of other workshops and videos available at the Online Presenters website, by the way, so I would urge you to go and take a look and learn. But what those workshops and presentations did for me was reinforce that while some things are the same online and in person, others are markedly different. For example, I spoke about using the stage. Now, I know that some people, when they're presenting online, like to stand well back from the camera so they can use the big gestures. But my particular space here doesn't allow that. I'm in a fairly small, cluttered room. My wife's chair and desk and PC is less than 2 meters behind me, so I have to be constrained in this little box. That's not a bad thing, though. It's forced me to consider how important my facial expressions are, how I can actually use the camera, for example, by moving in close and moving away. That was something that was borne out by the World Championship speeches that stood out during the pandemic. Speakers like Mike Carr and Alexandre Matt and Nitayer Levy, who used gestures like pulling the screen aside or offering cookies to their audience or concealing and then revealing the camera. And quite frankly, the skills they showed, the skills that I am learning here, are just as valuable to me as the skills I learn in my brick and mortar clubs. In many ways, of course, the camera is a poor substitute for in-room personal interaction. But given that the world has changed, given that remote working is becoming the norm for many, then learning to love the lens is a skill that will stand nearly all of us in good stead. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much for that speech, Graham. You most definitely have a fantastic radio DJ voice. I was impressed when I first joined this club and heard your voice. I'm like, wow, he has a very nice, soothing, professional voice. But thank you so much for that speech. And we are going to move on to one of my favorite parts of the meeting, and that is the table topic portion of the meeting. That portion is going to be delivered by...
Just a point of order. I know there was a change at the beginning of the meeting. I'm also speaking today, hence the doing a lot of roles.
Oh, okay, you're not on the agenda. That wasn't updated? Okay, so I'm sorry, I didn't get that at the beginning of the meeting, so I don't have your information, but our second speaker is going to be Joni, and I'll let her introduce her app, her level, and her speech title. Joni.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster of the Day. No, Madam Timer, we do not start yet. I'm doing dynamic leadership. It is level 5, lead in any situation. And that would be the speech. Okay, Sunny, you can take it away. It's always important to have an attitude of gratitude. As you can see, it's important to say thank you. Why is it important to say thank you? Doing district leadership, as everyone has always said, is not easy. When you have a job, if somebody's not doing what they need to do, you can put them on a PIP, you can fire them, you can get rid of them. There are all these punishment measures in place. But when it's a volunteer organization, what do you do if somebody's not doing their job? This is an actual question. Personally, even as a leader, I wasn't very fond of firing. I would much prefer to move somebody to a role that they would actually fit. So I'm gonna put this out there. What do you do as punishment in a volunteer organization? Just asking, because I have no clue. Anybody? I'm very happy that I found my tribe and like-minded people who are on a quest for the same thing, which simply is you cannot, and it makes no sense. I found that reward is much better. A simple reward, like a thank you, I appreciate you, or my personal favorite, whenever things are going horribly wrong and you cannot figure out why, asking that very question. I've always said that I found it weird that bosses give you the reason it is occurring. But when an employee does it, it's an excuse. But when I started out as division director, I decided that I wanted to hear everyone's reason/excuse for what they have to do. That was a cornerstone of my leadership experience. Why? Because I know if they weren't doing it, I would have to do it. And I started out with the most divine bunch of ladies. Initially, I had 2 members. 2 of them were from, get this, were criticals from all the way in India. Now, for those who were late to the introductions, I'm sitting somewhere in Jamaica, and the division that I'm leader for is all the way in North Carolina. It's not even a hop, skip, and jump or a little drive away from where I am. which means that my digital nomad experience actually came into play. I had another division director who was also from the Caribbean like me, but it made sense to have someone actually on the ground. Now, if you think about it, you don't always need to have everybody there. We live in a digital age. I'm a digital nomad, a strong believer in the fact that leadership is about what you put out, not necessarily your physical location. As a proponent for the new normal, it made sense that my area directors were from all over the world. They got the chance to implement the knowledge that they got, the skills that they had, and brought it to the space and their new role. The first thing I did was I made sure that everyone knows I'm here to support you. That's what I'm here for. As a division director, it's my job to assist us as a group in being held accountable. And doing that, I saw my area directors blossom. It was wonderful to watch them. It was so great that I can tell you we got 100% club visits. Why? We worked together. When it was time for the contests, we had joint contests. One hand washes the other. Then it got thrown in. The contests aren't online. It's going to be hybrid. Now, that's not easy to do when you're not physically there. I mean, after all, who is going to be running around to get the snacks, to get the spot, to make sure that everything is set up? But I can tell you, those two little words mean so very much whenever you have to do something and you're not physically there. The assistance I got, not just from my area directors and from their council, but from regular members, the everyday members, the backbone of the organization, left me in awe. They helped with the setup. They helped me in making sure that it went off effectively. I had an attitude of gratitude going into this because normally growing up, think about the changes Sherry just said about games. When I grew up, I had no idea that a little girl from Jamaica could sit at home and get the chance to be in a totally different geographical location to see how her leadership style and what she learned as a Toastmaster would be able to become presidents distinguished in a completely different geographical location. It's always important when you're leading in any situation to express thanks, give that reward for everything that's done, because that's what drives motivation. Nobody's obligated to do anything at all. Full stop, period. It doesn't matter if you all decided we're going out on that quest together. Everybody has their own reason why they can and why they can't. And it's really important to listen. And it's even more important to say those two special words, thank you, when somebody surmounts things that they're unable to do. We've had things happen from deaths in the family to trips to weddings that were being planned, all of which would take time away. But that's why it's important to listen. Listen to what those who are your quote unquote subordinates. I've never seen hierarchy and I don't understand it, but I guess based on what it's supposed to be, have to say. Because when they say, I have something happening in my life that I can't handle right now, Toastmasters is not a priority right now, at this second. But I've found that it's not the individual things that happen. Everybody knows my favorite phrase. This is where we come to fail forward. It's not each individual thing that you have to be perfect at. Why? Because overall, it's a combination of everything that happens. Were all our clubs presidents distinguished? No. Were all our clubs select distinguished or presidents distinguished? No. There are some of our clubs who only made it to being able to get 8 members. I'll say to online presenters what I told my area directors. The most important lesson that I learned in getting the division to president distinguished was how much work and time it takes for members and executives to come together to get even to 8 members. At the start, I told the ladies, my divinely dedicated team, be there. Don't just visit officially. Be a part of their experience. Because I found that the clubs that are struggling the most actually are the ones who do the hardest work and never get told these 2 words. I mean, after all, they didn't hit the matrix. They didn't get to where they needed to go. But if they didn't have 8 members, would not be possible. And that's why it's important to listen as you lead. Whatever journey you go on, my fellow Toastmasters and our guests, remember, everything is connected and a part of a whole. Everything is interconnected. When I was area director, I lost a club, which means that my area could never have amounted to even being distinguished, no matter how well every other club does. Remember, it's always important to say these 2 words. Thank you. Have an attitude of gratitude, no matter how small or large the accomplishment is. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster of the day.
Joni, thank you. I appreciate that speech. I don't think you've ever delivered a speech with 0 enthusiasm. I always look forward to listening to you because you always have a lot of enthusiasm, and I love that about you. So again, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on. There's a 3rd speech. We're going to move on to one of my favorite parts of it, and that's the table topic portion. And that's going to be led by Andrew Byrne. Andrew.
Thank you very much. I'm going to throw out a question and then I'm going to call on someone to answer the question. The first question is, do you ask enough questions or do you settle for what you know? Do you ask enough questions or do you settle for what you know? And for this, I'm going to select my good friend, Jim Barber.
You are testing our friendship, Dandy. However, this happens to be a fairly easy question. Do I ask questions or do I settle for what I know? I am constantly astounded at my own ignorance. What I do not know just continues to increase. The more I learn, the more I discover what I don't know. And so I constantly am asking questions. I delight in asking questions, but it's got to be of the right person. Some people either don't know the answer or they pretend like they don't know. They pretend like they know the answer. That's even worse, but they really don't. But on those occasions where I can find someone that knows what they are talking about, that is like finding a treasure. And I will ask questions and I will ask anything. When we have repair people coming over to the house, I always stand behind them. I ask permission first, but I always stand behind them if it's okay, because I want to see what they are doing. Even if I don't understand it, I'm going to pick up something. I'm going to get a little information about how to repair an air conditioner or how to replace a garbage disposal or something like that. Same thing with computers, same thing with artificial intelligence, same thing with online presenting. Everything can be everything. There's so much to learn. And I'm hopelessly ignorant. The one good thing is I am comfortable with my ignorance, but that doesn't stop me from asking questions. Mr. Topics Master.
And thank you very much, Jim. The reason for this question was on the first day of my entrance into medical school, the professor came up in front of the class and said, pay attention, ask questions. Why? Because 1/2 of everything you learn over the next 4 years will be found to be wrong, the wrong thing to do, or just simply not true. Therefore, you've now entered into a situation where you're going to be a lifelong learner. In order to be a lifelong learner, you will have to ask the right questions. And as Jim says, you need to find the right person to give you the answers. Here's the next question for someone out there. Think of the movie Major League with Tom Hanks. Question is, do you think crying is a sign of weakness or strength? And if our guests would be willing to do it, I'd like to ask one of our guests to do this question. Deborah, you willing to try?
Would you repeat the question, please, again?
Do you think crying is a sign of weakness or a sign of strength?
Thank you for the question. Crying is a sign of strength. Oh, I've seen people who try to put on exterior, being very strong and being able to carry pain and be able to have a facade as if nothing's going on, that nothing's bothering them. But I've learned from my own experience and others of wisdom, I'm crying. It makes me stronger. I may go through things. I may experience things that are very painful, very difficult, but I become stronger. You become stronger as a result of these experiences that you have in your life that may be traumatic, may be very disappointing, but you'll learn from it. You learn from these experiences. So you don't shy away from those painful experiences. You soak them in and you really become a stronger person. And I look forward to wiping those tears away, learning from it, and getting better. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is this. Who do you love and what are you doing about it? And if our guest Regina would like to answer this question, she can have it.
Wow, thank you. Oh, I love so many people. In my quest to love my children, I have learned that it's very important to treat them like they are my only child. So what I am doing about it is I am making dedicated time in my calendar every single week to make sure that I reach out and have time with each of my children. I have one who's in the music business in Los Angeles, California. I have one who is 24 years old and still living at home, doing online graduate work. That's an interesting relationship, and she's a hard one to catch. But I make sure that when she comes into my space, I shut my computer, put down my phone, remove all distractions, and give her my utmost attention. And then my son, who is 16 and driving all over the place, my ability to get him in front of me is as simple as opening my arms. So my children, I love them, and they are my heart. And so it's important to keep my heart open by spending time with them. Thank you for the question.
You're welcome. The next question is this. Which activities make you lose track of time? Which activities that you engage in make you lose track of time because you're enjoying it so much? And to this, I'm going to send it to Samuel.
Mr. Table Topic Master, thank you so much for the question. This year, I have taken up listening to audiobooks and various podcasts on YouTube. And I must have accumulated over, I'd say at this point in the year, over 75 hours of combined listening between podcast and audiobooks on Kindle, on Amazon, Audible. I get lost in those listening sessions. Oftentimes, several times a week, I take my 2-year-old daughter for a long walk, deliberately take her out for a 3-mile walk, and we often spend at a minimum 3 hours every day, or every time I head out with her on those walks. Part of the reason I do that is so I can have some alone time to listen to podcasts and audiobooks. So that is where I do get lost in my thoughts and lose track of time. Back to you, Mr. Table Topic Master.
Okay. This question is to Sherry. How much time do you want to, we only had 2 speakers. How much more time do you want to do in table topics?
It's 8:31, one evaluation. I would say we can probably take a few more.
2 more. Okay. Well, I got plenty of questions. And we will go on a quest for finding the right question. This one goes to Lillian. Would you be willing to do a question? Okay. Make sure your mic is turned on. Is it possible to lie without saying a word? Is it possible to lie without saying a word?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics fellow Toastmasters. Is it possible to lie without telling a lie? Saying a word. I would have to think about a good example on how I would do that. I'm trying to imagine. For me, thinking about a lie I always think of a verbal word, somebody saying something that's a lie, but I can totally see how somebody can lie without saying a word at the same time. So I would say, since I can't think of an example right now on how personally I would lie without saying a word, I would say, no, you can't. There's no way you can lie without saying a word.
Okay.
That's because I can't find a good example for it. But I have a feeling that, yes, there's probably a way that somebody can lie without saying a word.
Here's an
That's
example for
table
you.
talk.
Here's an
Awesome.
example for you, okay? You hate somebody with every fiber of your body. You get to meet them, and the first thing you do is you hold out your arms and give them a hug. Nice to see you, when you would rather be playing the scene in your mind of taking out a knife and stabbing them to death. But that's an example of not saying anything and taking an action that's a lie to your person.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. English is a second language for me, so I'm still learning the secondary meanings of words. For me, I understand lying as a word, as something that's verbal. So, but that makes sense how somebody can, I can see how that can be a lie as well. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics.
My pleasure. And we will continue with our quest. And this one goes out for all of those that are really a teacher inside. If you were asked to teach somebody to somebody, what would you teach? What subject would you teach? And why would you teach that? So that question goes to Sarah. What are you passionate about that you would like to teach others about?
What am I passionate about that I would like to teach others about? Well, when it comes to some others, I think it would be children. I'm passionate about children. And I had 3 biological children, but I have a lot more grandchildren. And I think over the years, just being with those grandchildren has been more rewarding in a way than being with my children, because now I have time to enjoy it. When you're in the midst of your children, you maybe not enjoy every experience to its fullest extent. But when you are a grandparent looking on, it's kind of like you're on the outside looking in, and you can really see and enjoy. And so if I could teach anybody anything, I would teach them how to enjoy their children, how to enjoy their grandchildren, and how to find various ways that you could reach out to them and connect with them, and have them connect with you. One of the things I enjoy quite often is when I get a text from my grandchild. That's amazing to me, because I remember when they were so small, but now they have thinking minds and they're their own individuals. So that's what I would do. I would teach someone how to connect with their grandchildren, how to connect with their children, and to reach out to them and be that special contact for them. Back to you.
Thank you. Here's a question that has nothing to do with the daily or current news, but if you were in your 80s, what would matter the most to you if you made it to your 80s? What would matter the most to you? And don't give me an answer thinking about your bowels, thinking about your next meal, or anything like that. You're in your 80s, you've had a life experience. What would you be thinking about the most to impart that wisdom to someone else, maybe to your grandchildren? And that question goes to Andre.
Thank you very much for this question, Andrew. I think I would be thinking about bungee jumping. It's something I've done a number of times, and I'm contemplating another one. The bungee jumping I'm contemplating on is the highest in the UK from the crane. It's about 120 meters. I've done 100 meters before, number of occasions, great bath. But now I'm thinking, when I get to, when I retire, or when I get much, much older than I am, if I'm going to regret about not doing this bungee jump or not. And luckily you asked me that question, so it's really, really easy for me to answer. Probably all those adrenaline experience that I never taken, all the roads where I could have taken that I didn't, just by sitting on my bum and contemplating, what would I do, instead of just going for it and doing. And then hopefully, when I reach 80 or maybe older, I can share with my bright eyes the experience I had to anyone who would listen. Fingers crossed, I survive my bungee jump I'm planning to do. Back to you, Andrew.
Okay, fantastic answer. And that brings us to one last question in this segment, and that is, what would you, what?
We should wrap up because
Last question.
2 evaluations, not 1.
All right. The end of your experience in table topics. Back to you, Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you so much. And I do apologize. I said we only had 1 evaluation. See, that quickly I forgot. We had 2 speeches.
You're in your 80s. You forgot.
Yeah, because I had an 80s moment. I am going to turn the meeting over to our judge, Kurtika. Kurtika?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Sherry. So though we have the timing report on the chat. I would like to call upon Sarah quickly to understand the timing report. If there is any information that you wanted to provide on the report that you have provided. Over to you, Sarah. Are all the speakers qualified or things like that?
That would be Dr. Sunny with the time.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I do have that information. So everybody qualified except for Andrei Smolenko. I'm sorry, except
Samuel
Samuel Irwin at 57 seconds. Apologize for that. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Sunny. So meanwhile, you can cast your vote directly on chat to Sarah. I would like to call upon today's accountant, Yoni. Accountant Yoni, over to you.
Just a point of order, Madam General Evaluator. I do believe I would like to see if I get any odds from our evaluators.
Definitely. So first part would be like we will have to jump into the prepared speakers evaluation. The first speaker, Graham, and his evaluator is Jim Barber. I would like to call upon Jim Barber to do the evaluation through Graham's speech. Over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Just want to give Joni something to do. Graham, before I get into evaluating this particular presentation, I want to explain what you're overall trying to accomplish here, because it's very impressive. You're going to do, you're doing the entire path of effective coaching. You're completing all 15 projects here at Online Presenters. That is great. And you're doing all the 15 projects focusing on online presentations, on camera operations. So basically, we are privileged over the next number of weeks to get an encyclopedia of effective online presentation techniques. And I hope that everybody will attend all of the meetings to hear everything that you're going to be saying in the weeks to come. Anyway, let's get to this particular speech. This is your icebreaker, and as appropriate for the icebreaker, you were talking about learning to love the lens. There's three components, of course, to a good evaluation. The content portion, you know, there you're always on target. It was well structured, it was well written, you were clear in what you were trying to accomplish. You did accomplish it. Everything worked. It was a wonderfully written, structured presentation. Verbal gets even better. Sherry indicated when she was talking about you, she said that you had a professional voice. And of course, we mean that not just in the professional meaning that you are an experienced radio person, but you use professional in meaning you're at the top of your craft. Your verbal presentations are incredible. Your vocabulary, you are a walking thesaurus. I love to listen to you. I talked about in my table topics that I like to learn. I like to learn words listening to you, Graham. You always use such great words. Visual, again, you've demonstrated that you are comfortable not only in front of people, which is why you joined Toastmasters, but in front of the camera, which is what you wanted to accomplish with online presenters, and you're doing that. I do have a couple of suggestions for you as illustrated right up here. One, your background. I like your background, it's very good. However, the way that it's set up right here, it's off center. There's nothing happening up in the corner up here, up there. And I would just like it a little better. I like off center, but this is just too off center on that side. It's a little leaning. I'd like to have that straightened up a little bit. And the other thing is that unlike previous speeches, there was an awful lot of glare on your glasses tonight. Maybe adjust your camera a little bit, the camera angle a little bit, because we'd like to see your eyes. That's all. This was a great presentation, and I'm really looking forward to the next 14. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Jim, for the elaborated evaluation of the ORM. Now I would like to call upon the second evaluator. Second evaluator is going to be also the grammarian for today. Second evaluator, Marianne, over to you.
Why, thank you, Madam General Evaluator, and good evening, fellow Toastmasters again. And good evening, Joni. Joni, you started your speech talking about the attitude of gratitude, and I have to say, one of my favorite attitudes to have. You explained why it's important using your district director experience. And I felt like this was my favorite speech that you've delivered so far. And I think because it's a leadership kind of topic, and those are near and dear to my heart, and I speak on that myself. So I loved it. And your gestures were spot on. Your facial expressions were illustrative of your words. You engaged us with a question. How do you punish somebody in a volunteer organization? Now, I was a little cringy when I heard the word punish as a former HR professional. So I like to say hold people accountable, but you did come back and tell us what you did. And that's exactly what you did. You were not punishing. You did hold people accountable, and you did show them appreciation, which always goes a long way. So I did like your visual aid. I thought that worked quite well. And let's see. In the end, you brought everything back to that attitude of gratitude, which is structurally very good, because you're just reinforcing that attitude. And I would like to only change that one word, honestly, because it was just like, oh, when you said it, but everything else, you were just like you were like right there. And, sometimes you have a bad connection too, but everything about you tonight was wonderful. And I really appreciated your speech, and I loved your topic. And the one thing that you could do to make yourself have a little bit more professionalism and authority is to stand and deliver. And, I get it. We all like to sit. I myself is a big sit on my butt person here, but if you're delivering that and you wanted to, project more authority, standing would help you do that. But thank you for this speech on accountability, because I absolutely loved it. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you, Maria. So eager to look forward for the results of the voting. Meanwhile, you can cast your vote for the table topics as well in the chat privately to Sarah. And yeah, listen as you leave is quite important. This is one statement that I received from today's meeting. It is always quite normal to lose track, as we do, as I also did right now. But it's quite important for you to lead during disasters as well. Okay, let's get into today's other role takers who have played a major role in bringing tonight's meeting's essence. First, I would like to call upon our counter to deliver her report. Our counter, Joni-Renee, over to you.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Just to state, I'm stealing this from Jim because he's our Wizard of Oz, but it was just because he was throwing me a bone. We spoke good today. I could not pick up any ahs, ers, or long phrases. We didn't even saw but or and very much, which is unusual. So either my ears are tired or online presenters, y'all are getting good. But other than PT, ahs, and didn't catch anything. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
It's time for us to cast the best, cast your vote for the evaluators. You can cast directly to Sarah. Meanwhile, I would like to call upon a grammarian today to deliver her report. Grammarian,
Maria. I was writing my evaluation, so I did take little breaks periodically from the keeping track. But what I have for tonight is that many people use the word of the day. Sherry, I liked when you said dive into the meeting, and then you repeated the dive right into the tip of the day. So I think you're in a swimming kind of mood today. Graham, you had an awful lot of great ones. Learning to love the lens, face for radio, craft my speech so my message would stick, good stead. Obviously, there has to be some good news, and markedly different. I liked all of the way you string your words together. Joni, digital nomad, divine bunch of ladies. I thought both of those were terrific. Regina, my children are my heart. Andy's response to that was even better. Wow, I like that. Let's see, Jim Barber, top of your craft, a walking thesaurus, and that's really all I have for today. But back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Marianne. So now it's time for us to know how we look online on the screen. For that, I would like to call upon our watcher. Our watcher for today is Samuel Edwin. Over to you, Samuel.
Thank you so much. Am I allowed to share my screen? It says the host has disabled my screen sharing abilities. Can I do it? Okay, perfect. Sorry. Let's go here. Can you see my screen? Yes, no? Yeah, okay. Perfect. Just a few observations, maybe for our guests, our two guests tonight. Let's go to, sorry guys, just give me 1 second, just collecting my thoughts here. Yeah, our guest Regina Carey, I personally love the backboard, the whiteboard you were writing on. I think this was great. It allowed me at times to kind of lean into what you're writing, but it could also draw attention away from the presentation or whoever's talking. But personally, I like it. It's just an observation. Our other guest here, I'm sorry, this is Sarah. Sarah, if you notice that your background and the glare on your glasses is kind of distracting a little bit, so maybe work on your background such that it doesn't overexpose you on the screen. And then one thing I need, this was a comment that was brought up last time as part of a watcher made a comment that I wasn't using the third frame, right? So just a general comment to our audience here that we should be using the rule of thirds to frame our appearance. So I'll circulate some guidance on that, and then I'll show that when I took a snapshot of how everyone is presenting, most of us are not in the third frame. So this is what I have for tonight, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Samuel. This seems to be like a good one to take forward during our forthcoming meetings as well. Okay, so not to leave out all our source and not to leave out other accounts using the crushing words. Now, I would like to call upon our chat monitor to give the report for today. Chat monitor Andrew, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Our chat today was reasonably busy, full of insightful and useful information. We started with Andrew Burns sharing information from Toastmasters International website about statistical data for clubs of Toastmasters membership and so on. You can save all those interesting facts for your usage for the later on. I personally have done it as well. Then it was a lot of encouragement for our Toastmaster of the day, Sherry, saying, well done, Sherry, you've done a good job. Encouragement for Andrew Byrne for his table topics. They were very thought-provoking as well. And then our speaker, Graham Cairns, shared his thoughts about audiobooks, great courses, lectures, that he apparently spends 25% of his budget. That's probably something. I encourage all the guests and the members, if you're interested, learning more about the chat, to save it. How you do it? On top of the chat, in the right-hand corner, you can see 3 parallel dots. Click on them, save the chat, so you can always come back to online presenters, chat with them anytime you want. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
That was wonderful, Andrew. Here we are to wrap up today's session. To give my overall report, we started on time. We exactly hit by 7:45, but we are running short out of time by the end of this meeting because of the prolongated table topic session. So we just have to have a quite good control over our time with the presence of Toastmaster of the Day, who had taken today's session in a very well-mannered and a bit slightly misaligned, organized, though the information that the Toastmaster of the Day has provided is enormous. We had 3 guests today who overwhelmed with their presence and gave insightful participation, as well as shared their knowledge participating in the table topic session, which is quite wonderful. One more information which we wanted to take care is the naming convention for each of the role takers that should not get be misleading during the session, that any evaluator or any speaker would get information about who takes what role. And I hopefully think artificial intelligence will not sweep away these role takers' names by itself, but it's only humans who ping in their role taker names, as well as the takers, as well as take advantage of the name that is being projected below their names. The fourth information would be like the speaker view of Yoni, which needs to be corrected, because when she was speaking, this wasn't captured during the evaluation. I just wanted to keep a note of it. The speaker evaluation, or the way that she was projected, wasn't known to everybody. It was her other window which was projected more than her own screen to be projected. Apart from this, as to conclude with the general evaluation, we know where we are, but not where we may be. This is one good platform for us to understand our strengths, weakness, and work on each and every aspect that we wanted to bring forward. This is also a platform to be agile, to keep you mindful, to play as to gain confidence, making it as a playground, but not at the cost of redefining its reputation. And that is the only information that I wanted to give you all through online presenters. We are an advanced club, and we wanted to take forward this to the next level by making our presence and by making our participation in a wonderful and fruitful way. And with this thought in mind, I would like to give the control over to the presiding officer for today.
Or Sherry, why don't you wrap up, and then I'll visit with our guests.
Great, thank you. But thank you, everyone. We had this was a great meeting. Everything went well. This was my first time being the Toastmaster of the Day for this club, and I enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Back to you, Marianne.
Well, thank you, and well done. We're not a tough audience, right?
Not at all.
I wanted to say, Sarah, I'm so happy to see you back with us again. And I wanted to just call upon our guests. So Regina, what did you think of our meeting tonight?
It was wonderful. So much fun, and my absolute first visit ever to Toastmasters. So it was a great experience. And I appreciate the diversity of male, female, different countries, different ethnic backgrounds. It brings me such joy. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I have to ask, what are you writing back there?
What am I writing? I always capture what I hear. This is part of my work as a former special ed teacher, but invisible disabilities is my area of work. So I work with professionals who have invisible disabilities, and this is part of my accommodation. It helps me remember things, and I can reference as I'm speaking back to the group and whatnot. So
And just so
I-
you know, our meetings are recorded. So if you ever did find something that you wanted to refer back to, you can head over to our website and find it.
terrific. Okay, thanks.
Lillian, how about you? What'd you think?
It was a great meeting. It's my second time visiting. I've visited before, but I was here last week and here this week. I always enjoy visiting this club. Very organized. Just you guys just handle even, you know, when things are not as planned. You're so smooth at transitioning between roles and filling up in a way that is so fluid that you can't tell. So I always learn a lot from this club, being such an advanced club. So it was a great meeting, well organized and run really well.
Well, thank you very much. And we were so happy to have you back again. Now, Deborah, how about you? Thoughts from today?
I came back because I love what I experienced last week. And what's so amazing is each person has a role. Everyone has a role. Did I miss that? Yes, everyone in the club had a role today. And I guess that's the way you do it all the time. But it's really a well-oiled machine. And I really appreciate being a part of today, participating, and just hearing the wonderful speeches and just a great experience. And I know this is the club that's going to help me move forward as I learn and grow with you. Thank you so very much again.
Well, for anybody who is interested in joining, Andre is there. Just chat with him and give him your email address and he'll send you any information you might, or if you just have questions, he's very happy to help you. Now, next week's meeting is a webinar contest, so it's going to be a little bit different. So you can still participate in that webinar contest by going to our page and signing up. But I just wanted to give you a little heads up that it's different, but it's going to be super interesting. So I encourage you all to sign on and see what it's all about, because it's not your traditional contest. And I always learn a lot when they have the webinar contest. So I think you'll like it too. There's going to be one more webinar contest in September, and then they're going to have a championship in October for the winners of all the 3 different webinar contests. So, you know, we're building to that. Now, we do have a special speaker coming on the 29th of July, and that would be Jack Levitt, DTM, and he is an author and a decorated evaluator. And he is going to teach us how to up our evaluation game, because as advanced Toastmasters, we want elevated feedback so that we get better faster.